Hello, my name is Damien Sweeney. I'm the Program Coordinator for Comprehensive School Counseling at the Kentucky Department of Education. I'm going to talk to you today about virtual school counseling. In the past, we've done some webinars and sent out those recordings for ELA opportunities, but there have been some updates from ASCA in different states, different districts that I've been able to pull information from. So I wanted to give you some updates on this subject. Now, we've got several learning targets for our short time today together. First, I want you to be able to implement virtual school counseling using multiple resources that you'll get today. I want you to understand multi-tiered systems of support in reference to school counselors and other mental health professionals. The ethical considerations for virtual school counseling. I want you to be able to use a trauma lens when working with students virtually, become data-driven, and then I really want you to understand how to create a tier 1 lesson for your students using ASCA's mindsets and behaviors for student success. Now, we know that it's going to be really, really important for all of our counselors to check in with our students periodically. We know that when you do that, students feel seen and heard and like you genuinely care. So one way to start those conversations is to offer the social emotional wheel. This wheel can help students identify kind of where they're at, how they're feeling, how they've been feeling, and give you a better picture of how they're doing emotionally. So before we go much further, I do want you to inhale courage and exhale doubt or exhale fear. By inhaling courage, you're saying to yourself, man, I know I can do this. I can absolutely do this. I've been built for this. Or you're saying, hey, I might be a new counselor or I might have only been in this field for a little bit of time, but I have the tools to do this and do this successfully. Wherever you are, make sure that you are choosing courage and exhaling that fear, exhaling that doubt. So your number one job right now should be to build community. All right. Build community among your students, among your staff, among your stakeholders. Show them that they matter and that them connecting with one another is only going to help us all get through this time. Remind your students. So let's say that you do begin your virtual school counseling sessions. Remind students that whatever meeting you offer, that meeting is confidential and that they should not be doing screenshots. They can choose to blur their backgrounds or use a background that's a picture, or they can turn off their camera. Um, Also remind them that closed captioning is available. Now, one of my favorite resources from ASCA is this Ethics in Virtual School Counseling FAQ. I'm going to show it to you here. Um, I am going to scroll through it just a little bit just to show you some of the questions and answers, but um, this talks an awful lot about confidentiality, and that's probably the biggest question that I've received at the department this summer and this fall is how do I ensure confidentiality? What do my consent forms need to look like and feel like for my stakeholders, whether they're parents, guardians, or caregivers? Okay, so that FAQ is linked on the slide deck right there for you. Make sure whatever you do that you are using a FERPA compliant platform. I will tell you that Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Hangouts, those are all FERPA compliant. And then make sure that you're smiling. You may be the only one that's shown a genuine interest in that student in quite some time. And what they've told us is that they just need to feel like they're part of something. And as I mentioned earlier, they just need to feel seen or heard. All right, so it's easy to say, this is going to be too tough. I don't know what to do. I don't know where I fit as a school counselor. Um, and that's a fixed mindset. But instead, I'd rather you have a growth mindset. I want you to say, you know what, this is hard, but I can do it. I can figure it out. I can work with other colleagues. I can work with colleagues in my school or my district or at the state level. Um, and I can figure out how to be a great school counselor that's working with students virtually and how I can personally and professionally grow during this time. Collaborate, right? Whether it's you popping into a teacher's classroom and introducing yourself or offering some little information here and there, or whether it's working with your school administration or other school mental health professionals, make sure that you are in constant contact, that you're collaborating, you're seeing what's working, what's not working, who's there, who's not there, and then you're addressing all of the needs presented to you. Multi-tiered systems of support are going to be extremely important during this time. I want all the school counselors in Kentucky. Now, you know that we've released this Kentucky best practices for school counselor framework. And in that document, we talk an awful lot about direct and indirect services. Our direct services are going to be services that we provide when we're right in front of a student, right? We're working directly with that student, okay? An indirect service is really good. It's powerful. It's something that we're doing on behalf of a student. A lot of people misperceive indirect services for things that counselors should not be doing, when in reality, there are things that we absolutely should be doing. So for Tier 1, we're going to do our school counseling curriculum lessons. You have so many different topics that you can create lessons for. One of the biggest ones right now is we know that many of our students are anxious, right? What's going to happen? What's going to happen in the future? Am I going to be able to play my sports? Am I going to be able to graduate? Am I going to be able to move on to the next grade? Am I going to be able to have a live class? Am I going to be able to hang out with my friends? Are my family members going to be okay? So there's a lot of anxiety around the pandemic, and you can create lessons about that anxiety, how to deal with anxiety. With Tier 1, you can also do student appraisal and advisement. So this is where you're at with your grades or your report card or towards your goal, your post-secondary goal. And this is what I suggest you do to improve. Okay, you can certainly offer your staff and family different trainings and workshops. I would strongly encourage you to do that right now. And then you can continue to build your community partnerships with your Tier 1 direct and indirect services. With your Tier 2, this is really going to be more for your individuals that have different individual needs, and then small groups, right? So maybe you're doing a small group for kids that are struggling with attendance, or kids that are struggling with behavior, or kids that may have lost somebody during the summer. You can provide that for your Tier 2 services. Okay. Again, you can also offer different instruction. You can do the appraisal and advisement here. You can consult and collaborate with different teachers, staff, parents, and community providers. And then we finally get to Tier 3. This is going to be indirect services for few. This is when we're really concerned about a student that might be at risk of harming him or herself or others, okay? We're gonna need to bring other people in, other mental health professionals, and potentially community-based agencies. Right? As school counselors, far too often we are reactive, right? And sometimes that's just part of the job, right? Sometimes you can have your whole day planned and you're going to do this and get this done, but you know as well as I do that that one emergency can completely derail those plans. All right. But this is a true time where you can be proactive. What lessons do your kids need? How can you help normalize mental health struggles? How can you make sure that all of your students understand that it is okay to not feel okay? How can you encourage them to work harder in school? How can you encourage them to have better relationships outside of school or in school? All of this is going to be proactive school counseling, and I really, really encourage you to take this time to figure out what that looks like for you. All right, so there's a lot of people that are hesitant. You know, I might be worried about this student, or I might be worried about this family. My advice is to call now. You know, there's no time like the present, and we don't know what we don't know. And if we have a hunch that something may be going on or somebody might need some help, let's just pick up the phone and call, and just flat out ask. Right? Just ask, are you guys okay? Do you need help? How can I support you? And remember that you're providing a continuity of care, right? So anything that you're doing right now is they consist of things that you would have done if you were in the building, right? But you're providing this continuity of care because we know that kids' lives don't stop because there's a pandemic, right? They still need our help in many different areas of their lives. All right, so There are several ground rules for telehealth that we need to make sure that we're covering with parents and students. We should be getting verbal permission first, but then following up to get written permission for social emotional counseling. We should there should absolutely be no recording on either end, and then definitely discuss confidentiality and make sure that nobody else is in the room when offering counseling. Okay. A question that I continue to get is, how should I document my contacts with families, parents, caregivers, or students? Unless your district says otherwise, and many districts do say otherwise, I would suggest going to the counseling tab in Infinite Campus. There are three domains for school counseling, as you know: the academic, the social emotional, and the college and career. All right, so we want to focus on each one of these domains during this time. And we've got to figure out how we can help students and families with each of the domains during this time as well. So how are we communicating our role during this time? What is different? What is different between a school counselor of new versus a guidance counselor of old? How can students and their families access Tier 1 lessons? What is your availability for Tier 2 direct student services, individual or group counseling? And then how can families or students get in contact with emergency if they need emergency help? Okay, so who should they be calling? Should it be the suicide prevention hotline? Should it be the text line? What are the community agency phone numbers or contact information, et cetera? All right, so when we talk about the academic domain, so this is for Tier 1, we have a lot of different things that we must consider. We've got to first figure out how we can deliver information to students and teachers within the school counseling curriculum on best practices and mindsets and behaviors. So the mindsets and behaviors for student success from ASCA is going to be something that we should be communicating with our folks. Those are our student standards for school counselors. We should be leading development of a safe and caring school culture. We should provide relevance to academic effort and educational pursuits by assisting in students' career planning and future career-related goals. The ILP, the Individual Learning Plan, would be one way of doing that, and we've got so many different resources for that, including the ILP playbooks in our Google Classroom, which you'll see later. So there's a lot to consider for this academic domain. All right, for Tier 2 in the academic domain, what is your academic progress? So we created LAC cards where we would show a student's progress towards graduation, what they had taken, what they were still missing, what they still needed to take. You might look at a student's transcript with him or her, their report card, or their course passing. You may create goals for the week, month, or year. You may also ask the student where they're struggling and what support they need. This should be strengths-based. Okay, it shouldn't be, you really seem to struggle, and you really have struggled in the past. So we've got to pick it up. It should be strength-based. Where are you successful? How can we build on that success? Where are you going? How can I support you with where you're going? All right, our social emotional domain for Tier 1, that looks like collaborating again with our classroom teachers to provide the school counseling curriculum to all students through direct instruction, through team teaching, or providing lesson plans. We should emphasize the need for SEL in all classrooms. We should model SEL for staff. Again, use the ILP playbooks. Every lesson in those playbooks is connected to social emotional learning. We should tie everything to the mindsets and behaviors for student success that I keep mentioning, and CASEL's 5 SEL competencies. And then we should focus on multiple topics like stress management. Coping is the #1 thing that our students, for our student advisory, the Commissioner of Student Advisory Council at KDE, that's the #1 thing that they said that they wanted help on. We should talk about self-care and managing anxiety, among many other different topics. Okay. I mentioned social emotional learning and tying everything that we do in terms of our Tier 1 lessons to SEL, right? So the social side, how can we teach social awareness or relationship skills? The emotional side, self-awareness and self-management, which all result in the responsible decision making. How can we teach that? Okay, and how can we remind our teachers that this should be done in the classrooms, not just with the counselor, This should be done in all school-wide practices and policies, and then this should also be done at home and in our communities. Okay, here's one cool resource, our health moves. So this came out of Shape America. This offers 10 mind and body activities for the entire family. So that's one way of getting the family involved in social emotional learning, like I mentioned. Now, something else that we need to consider for this social and emotional domain, race, equity. Okay, so here are some racial equity SEL cards that you can take a look at. We also created this really amazing document. We worked with the Department for Behavioral Health on this. This is guidance on how districts can facilitate conversation about race-based stress and trauma. Your Black students are often hurting, right? They may even be exhausted after everything that's happened over the summer, but they need to heal. And guess what? You can provide some of that healing for them by having some courageous conversations. So take a look at those resources. Now, for social emotional domain tier 2, remember that we're going to be able to offer individual and small group counseling. We're going to be able to do the appropriate appraisal. We're going to be able to know and utilize different counseling theories to inform both direct and indirect services. We're going to serve as a referral source for students when their social emotional issues become too great to be dealt with solely by the school counselor. We're going to use amazing tech to keep everything engaging. And then we're going to ask our students to storytell. Right? We know that there's so much power in storytelling. And when you do your small groups, if you ask kids to start telling some stories, guess what? Your other kids are going to be able to connect and relate to those. And that's going to spark a moment for your other students that says, oh, somebody else has gone through that? I thought I was the only one. And that should produce some really cool dialogue. All right. Now, for our social emotional tier 3, we created this document, this resource. Our colleagues in the Department of Safe Schools at KDE created this, and this offers just different resources for emergency contacts. All right, so for our career domain, the last domain, know thyself, right? It's not just about, what are you going to do when you grow up? It's about who are you? Who do you want to be? Who do you strive to be? And how can we help you discover that person? Right? So there are so many different cool things that you can do in the career domain. You can do career days. You can have different people within your community video themselves talking about their careers. You can work on the ILP. You know me, I'm going to continue to plug the ILP. You can do virtual college tours or have different military recruiters video themselves explaining their services. You can do all of the things that you see on here through this career domain. Okay. Here are the ILP playbooks. Here's just one example. All right, this is our upper elementary to middle school. Again, everything's tied to SEL. We even tie everything to essential skills. And then we offer these free lessons for you that you can take. You can make your own. You can use them directly as they were created or planned to be used, or you can, again, you can be we are flexible, and you can do with them whatever works for you. Okay, so take one of these lessons. You can use this in your tier 1 counseling. All right. We also have a Google Classroom. This classroom will offer a variety of topics for you to use. And again, all these consist of lessons that you can use in your comprehensive school counseling program. If you are doing something amazing and that you want to share, please share it with me so I can share it with others. All right, more information on each domain is here. These resources are from ASCA, and they give you so many different resources and ideas. I think you'll love it. All right, use the data. Make sure that you are a data-driven school counselor, okay? So focus on, because we know that there's just so much data out there, focus on attendance, behavior, and course passing data. We've got all of these different tools within Infinite Campus that can help you get started. The transient report, the early warning tool if you're middle to high school, the persistence to graduation report if you're elementary, chronic absenteeism. We've even got this amazing tool called data visualization. Now, to access that, you may have to get permission from your principal or your technology folks at central office. All right, so I want to finish up with giving you some just some different resources or ideas to try. So again, I keep on mentioning the ASCA mindsets and behaviors for student success. Again, those are our student standards. But did you know that there's actually this generator, this lesson generator? So I can put in different things here. I can put in, you know, I'm working with grades, students in grades 3 to 5. I can put in the mindset standard that I want to teach. I can put in all the different behavior that I want to teach. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to be able to get different lessons that I can offer in my program. Okay, that's one of my favorite um, resources. You're going to get this. So we've also got ASCA's virtual elementary school counseling toolkit along with the middle school and high school. For now, I'll just show you the elementary one. But again, there's so much in here that you can use in your program. Okay. All right. So check these resources out for each level. All of them are linked. All right. One of my favorite webinars that I was able to view was this one out of California School Counseling Association. So take a look at that. That's about an hour and 45 minutes, but well worth the time. We've got different technology that you can use. If you're not comfortable using your cell phone and having that phone number show up, you can get Google Voice, which will give you a different phone number. You can use Google Classroom, like I just showed you. You can use Google Hangouts. Nearpod is one of my favorite tools to teach with, and they've got different lessons on teaching tolerance that are free. Okay, if you have stakeholders that speak another language, you can text them using talking points, and that will automatically translate your text into their language. All right. You can record quick videos with Screencastify. Right now, I'm using Microsoft Teams to record this session. I just scheduled a meeting with myself, and then once I got into that meeting, I shared my screen and hit record. All right. Adobe Spark, Powtoon, these are some of I'm a professor, adjunct professor for school counselors, and these are some resources that that my students all love. Flipgrid's one of my favorites. Padlet, here's an example of a Padlet that I created. It's got SEL resources in it, all kinds of SEL resources. So Padlet seems to be something that's really, really popular right now, along with Bitmoji, of course. We've got 6-minute SEL lessons, Go Noodle, Brain Pop. Our elementary folks love Cosmic Kids. We've got free pictures. These resources are courtesy of Laura Clark from the Northern Kentucky Educational Cooperative, but free pictures if you want to create different slides. And then I want you to know, with virtual collaboration, you've got a really cool opportunity. JCPS and Hardin County, what they're doing is they're getting all of their elementary school counselors, all their middle school counselors together, all their high school counselors together, and they're creating SEL lessons. And they're saying, all right, by the end of the week, everybody contributes one lesson. Then they basically got a library of lessons that they can offer. They can create tier 1 lessons off of. All right. Make sure that you're offering your local regional contact information for community agencies as a resource as well. Okay. Make sure that you talk about what it is you are going to do, how you're going to offer your services, and then offer your family some just some different advice. Again, that contact information for the emergency phone numbers, emergency lines. We've got different Google Classrooms, Marshall County High School. Shout out to you guys. You guys are amazing. They've got an awesome Google Classroom here, right? Where they kind of document just different things that are coming up. They try and keep this updated with mental health lessons as well. So really cool. Of course, we've got our Kentucky Department of Education Google Classroom that I showed you a little bit earlier. There's the code for that. All right. Then I want you to think about this. When you see the following words, which child comes to mind? All right. Reluctant learner, child with trauma, angry child, a hurt or unsupported child, a homeless child, foster child with food insecurity or poverty, child with a history of suicidality or high levels of anxiety. All right. When you think about those students, I want to remind you that we've got to use our trauma lens, okay? This is a document that we created, one of the ones that I'm most proud of during this time, considerations for reopening schools supporting student and staff wellness. All right, here on page 11, we talk about the trauma lens, okay? And the trauma lens is going to really help you approach your work with strength-based thinking, right? What are the student's strengths? How can I support this student? What happened to the student versus what's wrong with this student? All right. Students under distress, again, can you check in on them? When you introduce yourself, remind parents that you're checking in with your students because of NTI days. Are they ask them if they're maintaining a routine or schedule. Remind them of emergency services and assessments, and then see if there's a therapist involved and if that therapist is offering telehealth. Okay. Again, with trauma-informed lessons, with that trauma-informed lens, we're saying what happened to you, how might we help? And eventually with support, we're saying how might you use your story as fuel to make the world a better place for yourself and others. All right. I'm offering different professional learning opportunities to each co-op this year. I've got 2 per semester, so check in with your co-op and see when I'll be able to visit you next. But all of these lessons strive to help you build a comprehensive school counseling program. All right, we've got other learning opportunities if you want to hear from other counselors or other educators. You can watch these videos. They're also often podcasts. You can just listen to them, and they're really insightful. So I hope you enjoy that. I already showed you the Padlet. We've got our KDE school counseling page along with our KDE COVID-19 school counseling page. And lastly, I want to remind you that compassion fatigue is real, and that I know that there are going to be days that you run on empty. And I want to remind you, counselors, it is okay not to be okay. You may need to lean on others on those days. You may need to lean on me, which is perfectly fine. But you have got this. You are strong. You are brave. You can do this, and you can overcome the compassion fatigue. But it is something that you need to talk to somebody about. Okay, whether that's a friend, a colleague, a loved one. Lastly, I want to challenge you to take care of yourself. We're really, really good at taking care of other people, but not so great at taking care of ourselves. So take a look at this list. If something appeals to you, get out there and do it. Make sure that you're practicing your hobby. Make sure that you're still looking for the inspiration, or getting out into nature, or moving, or sweating, or meditating. Make sure that you're hanging out with your friends and family, even if it is virtual. Anything that you can do to get yourself right, get yourself well, make sure that you're doing that, and that becomes a priority for you during this time. I'm here to help. I appreciate everything that you are, everything that you do, and everything that you will do for your students and staff. So if there's anything I can do to help you, if you're looking for ideas, if you just want to bounce some ideas off of me, feel free to shoot me an email. We can schedule a call and get together on that. Also follow me on Twitter. I try and get you some up-to-date information out on Twitter as soon as it comes out. So make sure you're following me. And as I end today, I just want to let you know once again, I appreciate everything that you do. Thank you.